So certainly there are many expectations from Budget 2020. Will it come as a relief for the Aam Aadmi, and especially given the economic slowdown and the crisis that's really staring at our economy? For the moment, joining us on the broadcast is Vice Chairman and CEO of HDFC, Keki Mistry, and we cut across to him to in fact understand what are the expectations of the banking and the real estate sector from the Budget 2020.
That's right. In fact, let's begin by asking Keki Mistry that what are you, sir, expecting from your general expectations from this particular budget, even as we are so, in fact, in a way, seeing an economic slowdown?
Well, my sense is this year's budget is an extremely important budget. To my mind, there would be expectation around four broad areas. The first area should be around job creation. The second focus area of the budget should revolve around capital market reforms. The third should revolve around personal taxation. Corporate tax rates were reduced in the course of this year, and we need to do something on the personal tax front. And the fourth thing that needs to be focused on is the rural economy.
So, sir, there have been two rounds of measures targeted at the real estate sector. How has it reflected on demand now?
So what are the issues that the housing sector is facing? The housing sector is facing two issues. The first issue revolves around stuck projects, and the second issue revolves around unsold inventory. There is a huge amount of unsold inventory in the market. How do we tackle this issue of stuck projects? So today when we look around, particularly in the big cities, whether it's Mumbai, Delhi, Bangalore, Chennai, Pune, we see so many projects which are 70, 75, 80% completed, but are not getting the last mile funding that is required to complete the project. Now the reason is that historically, whenever a developer undertook a real estate project, he would tie up 70 to 80% of the financing, and the rest would come out of sale of property whilst the construction was going on. Now, for a variety of reasons in the last 2 or 3 years, sale of under construction property has slowed down. So the last mile funding that developers used to get, they no longer are getting. And that is the reason why you see so many projects which have come up to this 70, 75, 80% completion level, but are not getting completed. So what do we need to do? A stuck real estate project needs funding, and that funding can be available only from two sources. One would be through home buyers. If more people come to buy apartments in that project and therefore pay money to the developer, which he then uses to complete the construction. But that is unlikely, because no home buyer is going to come and buy an apartment in a project which has got stuck. The other option is a lender, a bank or a housing finance company comes and provides funds for that project with proper diligence, proper security, proper safeguards, ring fencing the money given, and so on and so forth. But the problem today is that from a regulatory standpoint, whenever a project is delayed, it is likely to be an NPL in someone's books or the other. And the regulations today provide that if a project is an NPL and anybody else comes and provides funding for that project with proper security and everything else, will still have to classify the new loan which has been given as a non-performing loan, irrespective of how well that new loan is performing. So in that sort of a situation, nobody is going to lend money to a stuck project. So a stuck project neither gets money from sale of property, nor does it get money from a new lender. And therefore, when a project is stuck, it is stuck forever. So this is really the issue which we need to handle head on, because there are so many thousands and thousands of home buyers who have put some money, who have paid some advances, and now the project is not getting completed. So my suggestion, which probably could something which could be done, is that there should be a one-time restructuring that should be permitted of all real estate loans. We had done that in 2008, 2009, and it had worked extremely well. We need to do that once again. If we do a restructuring of loans, then automatically new lenders will come and provide funding for these stuck projects, as I said earlier, with proper safeguards, and the project can get completed. If the project gets completed, home buyers will get the house which they had paid for. To encourage more people to buy houses, to clear off the unsold inventory, I would suggest that the tax deduction on housing loans has been at 2 lakhs for a fairly long period of time. This limit of 2 lakh needs to be raised to 4 or 5 lakhs and should be linked thereafter to inflation. The third suggestion I would have is that long-term capital gains on real estate, on selling a house, to my mind there is very, very little money that the government will be collecting on this. But it is a deterrent to people who have been staying in a house for a long time, who want to improve the quality of their lives, or for whatever reason want to move to a new property. So therefore I would suggest the abolishment of long-term capital gains on sale of residential houses, provided the house has been occupied for a minimum period of, let's say, 5 years. The fourth suggestion I would have is that for rented properties, we need to also encourage rented properties. For rented properties, the entire interest which is taxed, which is payable on a rented property, must be tax deductible. The logic is that the rent that is received on a rented property is fully taxed. And therefore, if the rent is taxed, then any expense which is incurred exclusively for earning that rent should also be deductible, and that is the interest which is there on that property. The Prime Minister's Awas Yojana is an excellent scheme that the government had introduced. All hats off, great compliments to the government. But under the CLSS scheme, the number of locations which are covered needs to be expanded. More locations, particularly in the smaller towns, need probably to get covered under the scheme. I know that stamp duty is a state subject, but nonetheless stamp duty rates in India in certain states are extremely high, and there is a clear rationale for bringing it down. And the last thing I would suggest for the real estate sector is that external commercial borrowings for funding real estate projects need to be liberalized. The finance minister had announced this sometime in September, but the guidelines in this regard have still not been issued. So that is probably something which needs to be done.
Also, sir, the loan growth is not having a percolating effect. So what more can be done rather through the budget this time?
So one of the issues that we have been facing, particularly since the September 2018 problem with the ILFS, Infrastructure Leasing Financial Services, is the fact that there is a huge shortage of money available to non-banking finance companies, NBFCs. Initially, there were two issues arising concerning NBFCs. The first was liquidity. There was less liquidity in the market. And after that became the risk averseness that has now set in. Today, with due compliments to RBI has ensured that there is enough liquidity in the system. So that is not an issue at all anymore. The issue today is risk averseness. Risk averseness is something which needs to be tackled. The SME sector is another sector which is very important. The SME sector creates jobs. Job creation in the economy really happens through the SME sector, because they are the ones who invest in, small businesses, small offices and things like that. And for that they need funding. Now typically this funding used to be provided by NBFCs. But because NBFCs themselves are struggling for money, they are not able to lend money to SMEs, which is slowing down the growth of new SMEs and therefore new businesses. So I think the banks need to be given the confidence that any loan given by them to an NBFC is safe. Maybe one option could be that the fear that the banks have that NBFCs are sitting on a lot of toxic assets. One way is that there could be a TARP-like situation created where a special institution is set up which buys over the stressed assets of the NBFCs at a lower price and makes money available to the NBFC.